takes so much time to put out an album. Man, I'm always behind schedule. Ain't that I ain't hungry, I just always got my plate full. Try to digest all the topics that I'm spitting. You need to sit back and actually take the time to listen. We living in a new age where mind states are feeble. Kids' attention spans are shorter than Danny DeVito. My beat stole, be banging, be about my business. Bass stays knocking like a Jehovah Witness. Leave them scattering when chattering. The gang of rhyme patterns. I ain't worth challenging. You all need some aspirin. Aspiring to be me, no empires to feed. Just a chosen few that's flowing through. Firing up the weed. Jesus, crazy what the world coming to. I'm here to live it, make music. Y'all is just hanging on a gimmick, huh? Wait a minute, man. Don't get me confused with none of these newbie ass rappers, man. I know the game be feeling fucked up, but I've been making beats since '95, regardless if I had the right promotion or not. Word up. Hey yo, I ain't always humble, I ain't always intense. I've had my good and bad days like anyone else, more or less. Probably a lot more than less, or the more of it in a sense. Feel blessed, so I just move forward through the stress. But don't smoke stress, smoke the bombest weed you ever seen. Cannabis club category, certified Cali green. Type of bomb that I keep up in my sack. They give a lot of cats anxiety attacks, there's no denying the facts. But enough about the weed though, I keep it on a need to know basis. It's time for me to cut to the chase quick. So download this free LP, spread it to your friends and family, even to the little haters mad at me. I got 2 official LPs coming after these. So far I'm grateful for the love that's coming back to me. Truly appreciate the support, especially my peeps that had my back when I was going in and out of court. But of course a shout out to all my people who kept the game alive instead of killing it, selling out with weak flows. My crew, anyone that gave an honest point of view, much respect besides me, man. I do this shit for you, yeah, for you. Overpasses, some choose to overlook it. They should be looking past it. We hope for classics. We over you whack bastards. Soul suspects, man, we fall from the average. People try to act like they shit don't stink. They'll be up shit's creek, plus their ship's gonna sink. Now they knee deep in bullshit with nothing to think. On the brink of dealing with the most unpleasant of things. Time switch up, find ways to humble your strut. Just when you was thinking you was the next runner up, shit out of luck, yo, it's just the way it goes. I ain't gotta stress the rest, all you already know. From a distance, street lights start to filter in. Home from a round trip, had to visit new lands. Back in the building again, back from building with fans. Spaced out, sleep deprived, staring at the ceiling fan. So many things that they said to us when we was kids, but it was all bullshit. Yeah, open up your eyes. They would try to tell us one thing, then say the next thing. So I say, never listen to the lies. Man, everyone's a critic, just spit it how you live, it's how it's meant to be intended. So open up your eyes. It's all part of the game, ain't nothing but a dang dog. So I say, learn to read between. Yo, you going at it all wrong, so open your eyes. Yo, them cats be living life like they got 9 lives, so don't try. I hit very hard for my size 6'2", a little over 185, so get it right. They tough talk is filled with fallacies. Believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. So please, they can go and try to play the role as positive, but either way they talk with it, we know when they prerogative. Even if they polish up their image with some party tracks, we see through the lies, we ain't even need a polygraph. This is passion, the vibe is everlasting. It's better than the last one and colder than the aspens. Used to be overreacting, now I'm overreacting. Not pissed off, I'm mad, I mean I'm over here laughing. Shit is crazy, ain't it? The game is crazy, tainted. But I'ma do my thing and stay crazy fade. So many things.
What is going on, folks? Microphone appears to be working. Video seems to be working. It's Sunday. Today's gonna be a Photoshop day, which is like my favorite kind of days. Looks like we already got some people here, which is fantastic. How's everybody doing today? Where's everyone chiming in from or tuning in from? It's Sunday, which is kind of the same as like every other day nowadays, but I think it is gonna be a good one. I rendered everything out from yesterday, and today we're gonna try to make it pop and sparkle, so to speak. All right, I think we should just get to it. I guess real quick, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's enjoying their Sunday thus far, and ready to do some Photoshop and finish this image, hopefully. So we will hop right in. If you guys have any questions, or if the stream breaks up again like it did the last time we tried to do stuff in Photoshop, let me know, and I will try to be more mindful of the chat this time. But otherwise, let's see, where's the camera that we need? The one that's showing. That one will do. Okay, so this is where we left off yesterday. All I did was set this up at a higher resolution. Rendered out somewhat cleanly. You can see all the little mistakes that we need to fix. Lots of little stuff. The only thing I really changed right before sending render is I added this little piece in here underneath. And I added this little base here. Just so that this didn't die in the hill. And I think I added a door there. But it was like 10-15 minutes of work. I think that was it. Yeah, otherwise I think you guys saw everything. And then I set up a few like render passes. So we have a normals map, which we may or may not use. An objects pass, which we probably won't use. A Z-depth pass, which we probably will use. And then a multi-mat just to grab some of the big stuff if we need to, along with the trees if we need to. About half an hour ago, I did quickly send one last render, and that's this one. And all I did was I changed the tiling of the rock to twice what it normally is, and we're going to use that to paint in a little extra detail in some of this rocks in some places. So let's go ahead and grab that and paste it on top and make sure the colors didn't change too much. They didn't. You can see that everything is basically like sharper now, and we can use that to get rid of some of these like super dull areas. So let's close this guy up. Okay. And I think we can probably get started. Let's pull up a live preview. Oh, let's get up some tunes on again. Okay. I don't know why it doesn't save the last one that I was listening to. Or why I haven't just realized that I should have this set up before we get started. But, you know, guys, we're figuring this out as we go along. And we got nothing but time. What's going on, Milan? It's good to have you here. Yes, much quarantine. Right now, I think we're in a situation where the more quarantine, the better. I can just double click that. I'm just gonna make a shortcut for this on my desktop. Create shortcut. There we go. Now we have a shortcut for that, so I don't have to look for it every time. Okay. All right. Let's start working. There are a couple of things that I noticed in this. There are a couple things I noticed in this while I was sending it to render. And I'm just going to point them out now. I'm not going to fix them right away because I want to use some layers before I start doing like any like heavy painting. But there's a couple of things that if I had more time, or if this was like, you know, going to be like a printed piece, I would probably fix in 3D. One of them is that this area here and like this area here got a little bit tight for my liking. Like I think I'd like to take like this major shape and shrink it down a little bit. So that there's a little bit more breathing room on its sides. Obviously, once I start moving things super heavily in Photoshop, I can't use any of my layers, so I'm going to try to build it up kind of without that first, using some masks, and then I'm going to change that, and then we're just going to kind of paint until we're done. And obviously, there are some mistakes, like whatever this is up here that we need to fix. There's a whole bunch of like floating trees we need to fix. But, you know, most of that type of stuff is pretty simple and minor to fix. So I'm not too worried about it. So let's get working. So first thing that I'm going to do, we can see that this higher tiled rock has like a lot of detail, but it's very clearly kind of tiling, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to use a mask over top of this and a somewhat hard brush to kind of paint in some texture. So basically just using a mask, if we go in and we start painting things in, we can add texture into places where we feel like it needs it. But we don't have to do it everywhere, which keeps us from kind of running into that problem of tiling. And I do this a lot for these kind of like quick little abstract rock structures. I feel like it's an easy way to make things look a little bit more realistic without actually doing much work. So hopefully it made sense kind of how I'm doing that. And like you can see this like straight line running all the way up and down here. And we can just go and kind of like paint in with this, you know, new set of UVs essentially, because that's all that's really different. And we end up with something that looks a bit more natural. Or at least it does to my eye. And if you guys disagree, I would love to hear it. There's a bit more noise in that one, but again, you know, that only rendered for like 10 minutes. You can also paint in some stuff here to fix that, 'cause something got messed up with those UVs. Those look terrible. Let's see what it looks like underneath of them. And all we need to really be careful is to make sure that we don't paint over any too many rocks or too many buildings, because we don't have buildings in this one. Normally I would have rendered it out with the buildings in there, but I wanted it to render as much as possible. Before this started, and I only started it like, you know, 20 minutes ago or whatever that might be. Tasos, what's going on? Appreciate you being here and coming by on your Sunday. I'm just kind of like turning the mask on and off to kind of see spots where it looks cooler in this version as opposed to this one. So like there's something kind of cool going there, and actually that one kind of fixes, oopsies. This one kind of fixes that floating tree problem that we just had. So that's nice. Happy accidents. Now that tree has a home. Bueno. Ooh, and I like that ledge up above it too. I'm gonna pull that up as well. Yeah, this is a nice little simple way of fixing things. Some of that got fixed up here, and some of it didn't. That looks just fine. That's probably gonna get darker with some vignetting anyways. That rock looks cool. Definitely the top does. Okay. And obviously all the trees are still in place, so I don't really have to worry about that, which is nice. Okay. Oop, that went away altogether. One of the things, where did it go? Even though I'm kind of like zoomed in here so I can see what's going on, I do have a big navigator window on my other screen, so that I can kind of look at things globally. And I do think that looks better dark, so we're just going to paint out this weird kind of, for some reason, not displaced piece of geometry. I think that looks better. And let's see what's going on over in this corner. That kind of looks bad in both, so we might paint that towards the end. Let's see, do we have anything else that I really want to add in? That top looks better. We'll paint in some of it so that it doesn't look like these trees are so clearly coming out of things. And one of the things that I am trying to kind of do is keep in mind, I can see I'm like painting kind of like with the grain of the rock, so that the edges and where it transitions from one to the next looks kind of natural, at least somewhat natural, is the goal. And then let's look at that edge. I don't think that's going to matter by the time we're done, even though this does look nicer there. Okay, I think we're done with that step. Not the most fun of things, but if you look at the rock, you can kind of see that it makes it all just fit in a little bit nicer, I think. A little bit more realistic. We're going to probably end up with a few edges that change from the depth map, but, you know, life will go on. And one last thing, I actually like that up there. That's nice. That I like. So we will go paint that in. Alrighty. Does anything jump out at me? Nothing really jumps out at me at this point. I think that looks nice. Okay, so let's go. And first thing we want to do is we want to start painting in some fog and depth. And first thing that we need to do is kind of isolate this main centerpiece. And so let's grab this guy as a layer mask. And we'll just stash it there so that we have it. First we might go and actually use a curves layer to kind of lighten up some things, and we'll level the actual curves, all right, where we kind of want this to start doing its thing. Something like that. And then I think we want to just lighten it just a little bit towards the bottom, lighten the effect a little bit towards the bottom, because we're going to paint in some actual kind of like, some kind of like low-lying mist type of thing going on there. Okay, so let's get our kind of like foggy brush, cloudy brush. That's going to do, what's this thing doing? That's not doing anything. And let's kind of think here. There's a couple of things that I know I want to pull out. So like I know I want like that little circle to kind of start reading a little bit. We're going to put this into screen mode. And we're just going to kind of I'm going to be kind of like painting and then erasing and everything else. And so I'm going to use a fog brush also in, fog or cloud brush also in my eraser, so that you can kind of go both ways. And now I'm just going to level this really hard to completely isolate these two, because I know I want this guy to kind of pop forward, and even though I'm going to change its location, it'll be easier if I kind of get a general look that I'm going for with this, and then we can kind of go in and once we get like kind of a general look of what I'm trying to go for, then we can go in and put things in the right place. As you've noticed, if you've ever seen me do any Photoshop, I have a tendency to kind of go way, way too heavy, just like this, and then just take it and just kind of pull it back to where it starts to feel right to me. Similarly, we're going to go and darken this up a bit. So this, like, being able to grab that mask really quickly is the reason that I'm not moving this first, even though it's kind of a major change that I want to make. And there's not really too much rhyme or reason to the way I'm working through this. I'm kind of like trying to look at it as much as I can as a whole. And again, I have like the navigator window up here so I can look at a thumbnail of it. And I'm kind of just like seeing the first thing that pops up at me at any given time and addressing that first is kind of the mentality that I'm going with, so that at any given time I'm starting to work on the things that are most bothersome to me. And then, you know, from there, hopefully we'll whittle it down. And once we get to the point where we're kind of noodling details, we'll know that we're probably done. Water feels a little bit dark in some places. And we're going to paint in kind of the spots where I want that with just a soft brush. I forget who asked yesterday. I think it was yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, what the difference was between using a mouse and a mouse and a tablet of some sort, whether that's, you know, a Cintiq or Intuos or any graphics tablet, really. And the real difference is that, like, this is what I'm painting in here, and so, like, it's a complete and utter mess, but it's clipped by this mask. But it's a lot more, I find, for at least for me, intuitive to, like, work in this manner. Okay, and so now that looks a little bit better. We might want to change the color of that, and we might. These trees still came out, I think, a bit green for my liking. So let's grab a mask of those. And let's see what happens if we pull a little green out of them. We want to add red? Maybe we want to add... Oh no, maybe what we'll do is pull a little green out of the highlights of them. Maybe add just a touch of red, I think. And then I don't like that the shadows then got red as a result of that change. That's starting to sit in a bit better in my book, I think. That feels a little bit better, and we might have still just a little bit of blue kind of sitting in the shadows. So we'll pull that down just a smidge. That feels a bit nicer to me. And let's grab this guy, and I'm going to darken down the foreground. The foreground, like these guys, if these were going to look good, I needed to spend more time on them than I did. And so I'm just going to darken them and let them be close to silhouettes. Is kind of the idea, and that'll be fine. Which will also help give more depth into our image as it is. And I think that's probably has them sitting down enough. Go back down to my water layer here and paint in just a little bit of brightness over here so that we can actually read the form behind it into the water. And we'll paint in a little bit there. Okay. What do we want to do with the sky here? I'm not entirely sure. Vlad, what's going on, man? Thank you for coming by. Appreciate you doing it. Let's take a color balance and see what happens if we start to kind of warm some of this up a little bit. Maybe take a little bit of green out of the highlights. I'm gonna turn off. Ooh, that's moody. I'm gonna be sitting here in the dark for a moment, just so that I don't have a giant light shining in my eyes, so I can actually see the colors of all this. So I hope you don't mind the shadows. Oops, okay, let's actually pay attention to what we're doing, Mike. I don't know how much like those types of changes are coming into your guys' actual screen through this too, but I like kind of trying to get these somewhere into a happy place. Too red. I like that a little bit better. Okay, let's make some bigger changes. We can see that like very quickly, we just have a couple of sloppy layers, but you can see how this, if you kind of glance at your eyes at this, like there is some structure to it, but it still feels relatively flat. And like just by adding like a bit of depth, and we probably went a little too black on this centerpiece, but we can fix that in a moment here. But you can see that it's starting to kind of give shape to the things that I want people to look at, which is, you know, like some relationship between this building in the top and these three here. So let's keep painting. Let's actually go ahead and make some commitments. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to grab all of the stuff that I know I want to move and some extra stuff. Just going to copy it all and paste it over top, and then I am going to grab, let's go ahead and grab a couple of things here. So green, we need to grab all of this. Okay, blue, we need to grab Let's go ahead and start masking this actually so we can paste things in. I'm going to try to get a pretty clean edge to all of this, or relatively clean edge to all of this, and then I'm going to kind of paint it naturally, and we'll probably have to do a little bit of clone stamping. We're going to just go through all that right now. We'll have to do some clone stamping and all of that, but this way at least we have some edges that we're working with when we start to scale things, which is a sloppy way of working, but I was tired of working in 3D on this image. And then we just need to grab that rock surface somehow, but we kind of can't. What we can do is we can grab the red. In a perfect scenario, we'd actually have a selection set for that, but we don't. So, that's going to get that edge. And not that. That's going to give us that edge. We don't need any of the rock up here. And do we want that? We want that. Okay. And we will paste that into here. Oops. Okay. So now we have this kind of isolated. We can see a couple of spots, obviously, that have been missed for whatever reason. We can fix up some of these bad edges. Let's give a hard edge on this. And let's just paint all of that because halos are disgusting. It also kind of points out all of the sloppiness in this 3D model. But as a lesson, I think that most of us in 3D have a tendency to kind of be perfectionist and want everything to be perfect all of the time because, you know, the software lets us do that. And hopefully you guys notice just how messy this model is and how, for the most part, you can't see any of that mistake, any of that messiness. I think we waste a fair amount of time being neat on things that no one will ever see or notice. Okay, so let's just get that fixed up. Okay, so the other thing we're going to do is let's select all of this. Let's see how smart Photoshop's content aware delete has gotten. So I feel like this is a tricky one. Let's see what it does. I've seen worse. And then we can put this back up on top. We're going to clean all that up at some point, but let's first just like kind of get it into place here. Something like that. See how it gives it a little bit more space here? We have to clean it up, but it gives us a little bit more space on both sides, which I think I like, and I think I just moved it down a little bit too far. Yeah, I think that'll do. Okay, so let's go ahead and clean up some of this plate that we know that we're going to need to clean up. And again, I'm going to try and not zoom too far in because, well, for obvious reasons, details is not kind of the point here. And we're going to still do some more painting over top of all of this. Why is this painting so heavily? And so all I'm trying to do is kind of match some of these tones. And we'll do a little bit of painting. We'll do to kind of get rid of the stuff that I don't want to see. And we'll also do a little bit of stamping. I should be painting it on a new layer, and I wasn't. Way to go, Mike. And so we're just kind of trying to paint some of these tones in to kind of get an idea. And so with this, now what we're going to go through and do is take the reason that I copied kind of all the extra space around here is that we can take, we can save that mask in case we need it for some reason. We're going to go in and paint some white into this, and we are not as opaque as I'd like for it to be, so that we can kind of, so that the reflections start lining up again. I kind of like having that extra highlight there, and to get everything to kind of sit back down, basically. Need to fix that area still. No, I don't think we want to move that over. Okay. We still need to get rid of that. Dun, 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 dun. What's that white? Oh, that was the water. So let's paint that back in. And let's bring in a little bit of texture down here. Just kind of need to hint at something so that we don't have these like completely smooth painted pieces kind of going on. And we still have a map for that guy, so we can just go in there and delete that out. And we need to paint in, is that this one, this one? And now we have, that's kind of cool. But it doesn't make any sense. That's like some MC-Escher nonsense going on there. So let's go ahead and paint some of this in. Paint some of this guy coming over here. I don't know what this guy came from, so we're just going to go ahead and paint it. And key to this is like painting and variation, and we'll have to clean up that bottom edge at some point, but honestly I keep zooming in, and then every time I come up here and look at this on the full thing, it looks pretty fine. So let's just go ahead and paint in all of that kind of together. Okay, let's see how that change looks all together. I think that looks better. Would love to hear what you guys think on that one. I do not think that some of these top things look good, so let's go ahead. There's this kind of like line that you can see all the way up here, of like blurriness of where Adobe Content Aware did not do a good job, which is pretty common for it to kind of mess that sort of stuff up, but it gets you a lot of the way there frequently. We just kind of take and we can kind of paint in this so that this looks natural again. We'll have it until about there. And then we just come back in up on the top here. Sorry about my dog in the background. My dog is afraid of shadows and any noises, basically. Okay. Let's get that harder. And now we're going to go up all the way over on top. Clark, what's going on, my man? Thank you for stopping by. We are fixing stuff that I probably should have fixed in 3D, but didn't feel like fixing in 3D. Okay. And let's go ahead and paint a little bit there. You can see kind of my general philosophy on painting, which is paint out the thing that you're trying to hide altogether, and then worry about going in and making it not look like garbage. So So let's go and smooth some of this out with a slightly lighter hand. Okay, we're gonna need to add in a little bits of detail here and there, but I think we're okay. I think that having that down feels a little bit nicer. What are your guys' thoughts? In or out? I think I like in. Okay, so now let's go in and paint some stuff. First thing we want to do is I want to add some like general softness. I'm gonna add some softness to this whole thing, and then we'll come back and touch up some of those messy areas, which we can still see down here. So let's go ahead and make some adjustments to this. Let's make it a little bit more saturated. This is just a merged layer with set to screen. That I'm making some quick adjustments to overall. Ooh, you know what might be nice? If we bring the whole thing, should we go towards purples? Not obviously that purple, but a little bit towards purple. And then we're gonna go ahead and start painting a little bit with this. Let's keep pushing some of these things back further. I think we need some more darkness over here. And my only thinking for that is that like as soon as I flip the canvas, which is a great way to like refresh your eyes and look at things, I immediately felt like this left side of the image wasn't holding its own. Eric, what's going on, man? Good to see you here. Thank you for coming. That's kind of where we started. This is where we are right now. This line feels nice and hard, which I like. This one does not. What I'm gonna do is, can we maybe get this through a depth mask? Yeah, that's gonna be a hard one to pull out. What we're going to do so I'm going to darken this down. I'm going to do it. I made some selections. Oops. I made some selections inside of the normal map so that I can kind of isolate the pieces that are coming more towards us. And then deselect and blur that. Oops, what is that? That was weird. And then we're going to blur it a little bit, and we're going to soften it and paint a little bit more. But this way, when we start to pull this down even further, we're not just like darkening it in total. You can see kind of what that does as far as like pulls out a little bit of contrast. And then we can also go in and grab kind of where I want to put an edge on this. And I'm just going to draw like a line. I can't actually really see the edge there. It doesn't really matter. But we can go ahead and kind of darken that edge down. Something like that. And then obviously where we have these kind of hard lines, we need to paint that out. And I think we actually want to paint more darkness into all of this. Why? Oh, we'll pass this way down. So that edge kind of holds itself. You can kind of quickly see like how big of a difference that makes, I think. And then that one actually gives us a little bit of an edge. Okay, we still need to clean out some of those edges. But I do like the way this is looking. Sorry that I'm sitting here in the dark, but no one would be happy if I wasn't, basically. And we've also lost this edge almost entirely. I'm guessing that was from all of the painting. But we want to bring that back, definitely. Kind of like this whole edge here. And so what we're going to do we have a quick way to select that one? No, I probably should have been a little bit more mindful with my masks, but that's okay. Not sure where all this stuff went. Don't need that, do need that. And I'm a huge fan, as you guys can see, of depth masks. If I only had one mask that I could have, it would definitely be a depth mask. Okay, so we can grab that line, invert that selection, and then we're just going to kind of draw where we think we want this to actually come. Something like that. You can see we're getting a ridge line here, and I'm actually thinking that it might be nice to use that. Let's see what this mask actually looks like. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of just follow these contours a little bit. I'm not going to worry about the tree because that would take forever, and we can just paint it so that it looks good. And let's keep that. Something like that. And then let's invert this. Control deselect. And then what we can do is we can go grab our smoky brush again. Set this to screen. Paint with like a bluish color. And that's a little bit drastic. You can see how like that edge that doesn't exist starts to come out there. Maybe paint a little bit of that down here. And now we need to just adjust this mask so that we don't have a black hard edge there, which is easy enough to do. Dun, 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 dun. And then we're just going to tone that back just a bit. Dun, dun, dun. All right, so I know at least somebody in the audience is looking at this and like, Mike, when are you going to fix X? You've missed it entirely. Let's hear it. I know whenever I watch someone work, I'm like, how have you not noticed this and fixed it? Let's make it a group effort. I would love to hear what you guys like when you're looking at what I'm doing here. What's jumping out to you as like in desperate need of fixing? And I'll try and fix it if I agree with what you see. But this is like one of those things where I feel like a second set of eyes is always a good thing. Give a little bit of extra form back into these places where we've kind of like fully, what's going on with this brush? Oh, it seems to be working. Give back a little bit of form where I want these to kind of not feel like I very sloppily photoshopped them, which I did, unabashedly. The point of this exercise was never to make like a perfect piece, otherwise we'd go into 3D and fix the things that I fixed and re-render it. So let's fix some texture stuff here, just pulling in like a few different colors. Once we add noise over top of this whole thing, that'll help a decent amount. But let's kind of firm up some of these edges. Find a dark color, type it in. What I feel like this brush is doing something funny. Let's grab a different brush. Okay. Excuse me. So how is everybody spending, what is this, like the second or third quarantine Sunday? That tree right where you are looking looks like it is floating. Oh, there are a bunch, I'm not sure which tree you're talking about. There are a bunch of trees that are floating at the moment. That one kind of looks planted in, but one of the things that we can always do is just kind of like blend in like the shadow and the base. This guy, right? We can actually fix, there's a bunch of trees. That one's actually kind of okay. Let's see what other trees are floating. I feel like this would be nice if we had a little bit more shadow coming out. That needs to get fixed. This guy is super duper floating. And so for this guy, what we're going to do is we're just going to, I think, fix that. Give it a little bit of shape to it. It's a little bit weird that that's coming out from this guy, but I think it's okay. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint all the way down so that it looks like it's behind all of this, and then I'm going to paint this back over top. Let's grab a little slightly brighter color, and we'll grab some of these lines in front of it so that it looks like it's actually kind of sitting in there. And maybe it's got a little bit of light on it. These guys, ooh, which mask was that? That's kind of a big fuck up. Nope, nope, no. There's the guy. We were a little bit brazen with that one, huh? Let's fix that up a little bit. We're gonna have it kind of disappear there. That's a little bit more tenable. Does it come back? No, it doesn't. Let's delete. We'll leave that there in case we need to check it. And then let's pull these trees back down, doing the same kind of nice and quick method of just pulling the trunks down, painting out like where they're floating. All these floating trees would actually be a giant pain in the ass to actually fix in 3D because we have heavily displaced geometry that then also has a scatter over top of it. And I think you can actually scatter on displaced geometry with F-Storm, but I do not think that you can, or with V-Ray, excuse me, but I don't think that you can with F-Storm. I haven't really looked into it. Yeah, Clark. I got all kinds of floating trees in this little fantasy world of mine. Okay, now I think this guy can kind of come. Maybe we give him like a little bit more of a silhouette, like it looks like he's trying to hold on to this cliff here. None of those I can tell are floating. Some of these guys are pretty bad, but I'm not too concerned about them because you really kind of have to zoom in to see them. And in fact, you can't even see these. This is where you start to kind of lose focus on what you're doing. Okay, so some other things that I know I want to do. I want to pull out this edge again. I want to pull out this little spire, and you can see, obviously that grabbed all the green stuff and darkened down all of it, which is adding all kinds of problems. I could go in and clean up that mask, or I could just put it in another window. I just group this giant mask that has everything in it, and then inside of that mask, make another mask, and I can just kind of paint where I want that shadow to kind of come in. Which is kind of a couple of these pieces to pull out that silhouette. But I don't want it to take up that side. I'm just going to keep rolling. What is that about? Okay. I think that we can also, no. I think that we can probably pull in just a little bit more shadow kind of under here as though it was a reflection. This is a little bit more painterly, I think, than I usually work. I think left to my own devices, there's a pretty good chance that I would have gone in and fixed these things in 3D so that I wouldn't have to paint them all in. But the idea of going back into 3D to work on this particular image live is just not something that appeals to me. That's okay. I'm still liking where it's going. Let's kind of have another look. That's where we started. The whole image has gotten a bit lighter, and I have one other thing I want to do, or a couple other things I want to do. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see, something like this. I think I want to go a little bit darker. And I want to adjust the color of these lights. They're feeling a little bit reddish to me, and I want them to go a little bit more orangey yellow. So let's see if we can pull them out. We can select them with just a hue saturation layer. I think we want to move them that direction, and I'm going to spread it just a little bit to make sure that we have a nice clean fall off from them. Having them super saturated like this is a really easy way to make sure that you're adjusting just the things that you want to adjust. So those colors are coming in nicely, and now I'm going to take a screen layer over top of all of this, go back into the brush, my brushes, if Photoshop wants to obey me. I'm going to go back in with like a soft cloudy brush and kind of like a dark orangish yellow saturated color, not that saturated. There's a little bit green. And then I'm going to go in and kind of start to paint in, again, a little bit too heavily, or a lot too heavily. I want everything to glow just a little bit more and have a little bit of texture to that glowing. And all I'm trying to do right now is kind of get the glow where I want it to be. And then we're going to tone it way down. Like that. I'm going to level this heavily. Actually, what we're going to do is leave that as normal. One of the things that I do find whenever I'm trying to kind of like paint over this stuff quickly is that doing it a few different ways and then coming back to it and like softening all of them gives me a better result than just trying to do it all in one go. I don't want any of the sky in this. So we've kind of just quickly like leveled this so that we're just getting all of the lights themselves. And maybe we want to do color dodge and maybe color dodge is not what we want here. I actually want this to go. Hopefully this is making sense, at least kind of how I'm thinking through it. One other thing that we still have going on is that like this foreground's getting all lost. So let's go back to our depth layer again, because I didn't fuck too much with too much with that. And we're gonna paint it, so we'll make a new layer. We're going to invert this and level it again super duper harshly. Hopefully we can get the mask that we want from that. Oh, you know what? That was not the right way to do that. What do we have here? There we go. Let's just grab, first we're gonna grab the red stuff. We don't want anything beyond this, and I don't know where that is going to end. Did that the wrong way. want something like that, and then in the greens. Doop. There we go. Okay, delete that layer mask, put on another one. That should work. And I actually want to invert that. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to paint in just a little bit of like fog and atmosphere to pull out those top edges. So that they have just a little bit more contrast. Is that the brush? Yeah, I'll use that brush. And so if we go in, so you can see how this is pulling out those top edges. It's missing one, but we can fix that mask in a second. What I want to do here is get it so that we're actually seeing it. Let's add that tree into the selection, which we can grab easily. Dun, 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 dun. Nitin, what's going on? You are a little bit late, but that's okay. This will be, I don't know if Photoshop posts these right afterwards or what. Oops, that's not the right layer. That's the right layer. I don't know if Photoshop, or excuse me, Photoshop. If YouTube posts these right away after they're done, or if it takes a little while. But it will be up on YouTube, you know, whenever YouTube does whatever YouTube needs to do. And then obviously let's paint away kind of this bottom stuff. Paint that away, that away. So you can see like that's super duper heavy. But you can see how it pulls out those top edge lines, and then we're just gonna go and soften it up because I don't want that to be like a point of high contrast. I just want it to be something that kind of reads as still present. And then let's get back to a brush, painting brush. Let's paint in this bottom edge just a little bit here on our rocks and whatnot to kind of pull that water's edge out a little bit. And give this kind of whole rock structure a little bit more shape. Ooh, we never fixed that. What should we do with that guy? What we're gonna do here, I know that there's a mess of layers over here, but with the exception of where I've like really fucked up for one reason or another, I haven't gone back and tried to fix anything specifically, and I do generally work that way. The layers aren't a way to like preserve like a good workflow, or to sorry. Trying to think and talk at the same time. The layers in this file are definitely not so that like I have a non-destructive workflow. This is like a very, very destructive way of working. At any given time, I'm just trying to keep moving forward. So we could go through and collapse this whole thing, and it wouldn't affect kind of my workflow at all. Something weird happening here. Why is this not painting what I want it to? Yeah, that's good enough. Fuck it. I'm not sure what's going on. There's something strange happening that we don't have time to fix. So we're just going to go and paint all of that out and fix that edge just a little bit. Maybe we'll bring in a little bit of this. From a distance, that looks good enough. There we go. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere. Dun, 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 dun. I feel like I generally like where it's at. I want to pull this edge back out a little bit more strongly. Or just paint it. That wasn't a problem, I think. There we go. Put in some lines to like pretend like something's actually happening there, even though it's not. Got that back. This is a weird little halo that we're just going to kind of paint away. Let's see. Let's take a look at the before. It's obviously gotten a lot messier. And it's, I would call this one messy even by my standards. But, I don't know. I kind of like it. Let's kind of fix some of these edges. So that this edge kind of comes back out and doesn't look so weird. Oopsies. We have another floating tree. What do we want to do with that one? That one, I think we want to just get rid of. I don't think that's helping us at all. First we'll paint the whole thing out, and then we'll fix kind of that stupid tiling mistake that I just made. There you go. Out, 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 out. Get rid of you. And now that's another place where like it'd be nice to actually be able to see this edge. And I think we want to go darker with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep painting a little bit of stuff here, and then we're going to grab it. Dun, 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 dun. Something like that. Hide that selection. And actually in a new layer, we're going to set it to multiply this time. And again, sloppy painting first, cleaning up later. Dun, dun, dun. So that just kind of makes that edge visible again. Okay. What else do we want to do? I feel like we could use some. Do we want to put some little highlights onto these roofs? And again, like the same thing, we're going to overpaint all of these. And then tone them back down. A little bit of life to them. Hey, what's going on, Sergio? Thank you for coming along. There are a few things I still don't like about this, and I think it's kind of from the sloppy work that I did at the very beginning. You know, maybe we paint in a bottom edge here, just kind of in the same way. Maybe we make it up. Is that what we need? We need like an edge. So that kind of, that gives it a little bit more structure, and then we kind of bring this over, bring some of these over, da 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 da. Maybe we bring that color up just a little bit into the actual rock face. That edge we can't read at all. like it lighter. I know I'm way zoomed in on this little map, but I'm, again, looking at the small one, trying to figure out what I'm actually getting done here, what I'm achieving from a big picture standpoint. Working with the navigator window so you can always see the painting as a whole, I think is super duper helpful. You can kind of see it's just like all this little, my I like working messy mantra is kind of coming back to bite me in the ass, but such is life. I'm gonna do the same thing here where we're gonna just double mask this so that I can kind of paint in a few edges where I want them to be, a couple of things down here so that we can actually kind of bring these back out. At least some of these edges. Just trying to give as much, like, I want to be able to read that line, right? Which, like, we had kind of lost through all the messiness. Okay. Then we'll go in and blend that just a little bit. Hard and soft edges. Okay. Thank you, Clark. I do think that the highlights helped. I agree with you, and I'm glad that that opinion was shared. Still feels like something's wrong. This building. Maybe it's because we made it a little bit too heavy. Let's paint a little bit of light back into some of these surfaces. It did get like really dark kind of at the beginning. What to do? What to do? Let's have a look at it from the other way around. Maybe what this needs. This is another layer that I just went and copied the whole thing and blurred it and set to soft light, and it's set to kind of, and it's set to just kind of, it'll add contrast and it'll add a little bit of color. There's still something kind of, you know what I think might be the part of the problem? There's something that I can't quite put my finger on as to what I'm not liking just yet, and I'm thinking it might be this line up here. Probably can't see where I'm pointing. Up here, we have this kind of like super bright line that like fades off very quickly, and I think what I'd like is to extend that further. This is another need for Z depth is what we want to get here, because we want to get this to be isolated as much as we can. There's the red, a little bit too much red. Just kind of correcting all of the colors, and now we're going to go in. And I did it by lifting the black so that the bright part stays kind of where it's supposed to be. Basically, any of like the types of changes that I'm making are all kind of dealer's choice type of changes, in that I'm doing this with the curves layer. You could do it with the levels layer. You could do it just by painting. I generally just do whatever comes first in my mind. I think maybe we can pull this up a little bit. Maybe we need to bring the color of the sky down a little bit. How can we grab the sky? We can grab the sky by selecting all the trees. Let's add some stuff to the sky here. Control Shift Inverse. Dun, 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 dun. Let's add a little bit of something to the sky. I'm not quite sure yet what, but a little bit of something. What am I missing today? Dun, dun, dun. I think we've made some pretty good progress on this. I don't know if I'm ready to call this done. And we're about out of time. Those of you that are watching, what do you think? Should we call this done? Should I just finish it in my free time? Or do you want to see whatever I do next with it tomorrow? It is totally up to you guys. Let's go ahead and just group all of this. Yeah, I'm just not sure. Something, I can't put my finger on what's wrong just yet. I'm not sure if it's a painting issue, if it's a color issue. Maybe I've just been... One of the things I do definitely find, and I find this both when I do workshops and also when I'm finding more and more with the live streams, is I do just kind of like keep working forward, and sometimes I get myself into a position where I'm like, I'm not quite sure what's happened. That's not helping. Let's keep trying some stuff. Maybe if we bring some saturation back a little bit. Do we want to make the whole thing kind of soft and dreamy-ish? I'm not sure. You know what? Sometimes is a good way to figure out what's going on, because I feel like it's something to do. I'm not buying what's going on with the light yet, and so I think I'm going to keep painting a little. Come on, Photoshop! Don't want to do that. And let's go color dodge, and let's go with a super soft brush. Oops. A little bit strong. getting a little bit saturated there, but that's okay. That is actually starting, I think, to move it in the direction that I want it to go. And what it might be is that we have all this kind of atmosphere in the scene, but none of it is currently kind of playing off of the actual lights in the scene. And so maybe we go in and let's take a cloudish brush and paint in just a little bit. Right, so like if there's all this kind of atmosphere in this scene, obviously around the lights, it would also be, that atmosphere would be getting caught and like kind of lit up by the lights that are near it. So maybe we need to just keep adding a little bit of that. I feel like that's like the concept artist like answer to everything is add fog, add bloom, add atmosphere. And for a reason, because it's fun to do and it looks good. So maybe we add some of this kind of spilling down. Put a little bit up top. That one seems a little blown out, so we might tone that down a little bit. That's kind of, that's a bit heavy-handed. But I am kind of liking the direction that that's taking this. It feels a bit more. Oh, looks like we got some comments in here. Maybe you can finish in your free time and then show us what you end up doing later on. That's not a bad idea, Jake. Maybe I just record my screen and then I can just kind of talk through it. Touching stuff like noise and all the end stuff, I can definitely do that. Manual bloom. We already have a lot of like direct bloom that was like rendered in, and now I'm trying to kind of add like atmospheric bloom. Because like bloom is more of an optical effect, whereas what I think I want is more of a atmospheric effect. What was that? What was going on outside my window? Oh, I do not know what's there's noises happening. Yeah, I think what I'll probably do is maybe tonight I will continue working on this and I will record it and then we can watch it a little bit speed it up and I can talk through it and we can go all through the end stuff that I'm thinking. For darker sky, you have to be a little bit careful on darker skies for this, Sergio. And the reason is that any type of fog that we're putting in here is basically being lit by like ambient light, which is effectively the light of the sky. And so if we were to darken the sky, the same atmosphere that we're looking through to get here, we're looking through times, a lot to get to the quote unquote sky. And so like keeping it light is definitely important. But one thing that does make me think we could do, that we'll do real quick, is we could go in and kind of paint in, and we can do this more carefully, but start to paint in a little bit more atmosphere in these trees up here. And let's kind of blur that because that brush, for a cloud brush, that does tend to have some hard edges. Yeah, I think messing with that top edge might be a key, and I'm probably gonna redo a few of these things. All right, so that's what we're gonna do. Tomorrow we will be looking at whatever I end up doing between now and then to finish this and pull it together, and we'll watch actually like through what's going on it. All right, I gotta get back to client work. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday and that everybody's doing well. Let's turn me back on so that I'm not just sitting in shadow anymore. But yeah, I think that it didn't go quite as smoothly. It never does. Let's be honest here. But let's go ahead and say like, okay, I think it's kind of getting there. Let's see. I feel like we just kind of overdid some things. I'm not sure. I'm going to go back in and do a little bit more painting. I'm perplexed on this one, but I like the direction it's headed. I feel like it got a little bit too contrasty in a bad way from the old one. I'm going to do something, guys, and we will look at it tomorrow. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully you guys have someone that's hanging out with you. You can have a Sunday cocktail with. Wash your hands. No going outside. All that fun stuff. Stay positive. Stay productive. We will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow. Until then, happy rendering. Talk to you all soon. Be safe. Be well. Later.